And now, our feature presentation.
Hello everybody, welcome to another episode of Major Emotion Pictures, a series where I sit down with friends, colleagues, other film lovers, and discuss movies that are important to them. And today I have with me my good friend Aaron. Say hello. Yeah.
Hello.
And,
what's poppin'?
And Aaron, you are a film lover as your wall would confess. And you have picked, right. You've picked the movie for today. You picked the arguably best one, the Lego Movie.
That's right. It's it's my all-time favorite movie. I grew up obsessing over Legos because that was about all I had to do. And when it came out, it kind of just turned everything upside down in terms of what I thought an animated movie could be and what comedy could be and what a kids movie could be, because I was still when did it come out? 2014?
2014.
Yeah, so I was in high school then and just loved it and still do.
Yeah. To give a brief overview for those who might not be familiar, Lego Movie is a 2014 animated comedy. Is directed and written by Phil Lord and Chris Miller, who also wrote and directed Clyde with a Chance of Meatballs. We're going to do Solo, but that...
They did the Jump Street movies.
They directed 21 and 22 Jump Street. They also wrote the second Clyde with a Chance of Meatballs movie. And we're also heavily involved in Into the Spider-Verse, which is...
the cream of the crop.
Spider-Verse is great, as well as doing other projects like Clone High on MTV and The Last Man on Earth on Fox. And yeah, it follows Emmett, this little average Lego brick guy, as he gets himself wrapped into this major otherworldly conspiracy to stop President Business from putting the world in order. It's really hard to give a brief description of this.
Yeah, it's surprisingly convoluted for a Lego movie.
It's basically a parody of the hero's journey trope.
Right.
For anyone who's unfamiliar with basic English literature and just basic writing tropes, the hero's journey is that idea of... It's Star Wars. It's that idea of you take this unsuspecting person, thrust them into the middle of this conflict, and because of their different perspective, they end up being the key to saving everyone because they are the unknown. And the whole movie plays with that concept in really, really smart ways. So yeah, you want to... Is there any other reasons you want to explain as to why this movie, or you want to just jump into talking about it?
I mean, for me, it's one of those movies that I'm just if you watch it and you don't like it, that says a lot about your personality. But at the same time, everybody has different tastes.
Right. It's a good litmus test for you.
Yeah. But I've had arguments with my best friend about it because he absolutely hates it for some reason. And he didn't even, Matt, if you're watching this, you didn't even watch the whole thing.
Wait,
so you
Matt,
can't, like...
Which Matt?
Matt Pinalva.
Oh, not the Matt that I know. Not one of the, 4 or 5
Like the
other
8
Matts that we know.
that go to Longwood. No, this is surprisingly a Matt that we do not know from school. But yeah, it's a good litmus test for, at the risk of like sounding pretentious, of what you enjoy in terms of movies. If you enjoy the Lego Movie, then I would say you have good taste in movies.
Yeah, even the later ones like Lego Movie 2 and Lego Batman and Ninjago, those, if you are less of a fan of, I'm more understanding. Like, I love Lego Batman, but Lego Batman is very hyperactive, even by Lego Movie standards. So, like, if someone tells me they're not a fan of that one, I'm a little bit more understanding. I'm like, all right, I can kind of see that it's very, like, in your face with how jokey it is. But Lego Movie is really, it's top quality.
I agree, and I do want to preface. I don't think that if you don't like the Lego Movie, you have bad taste in movies, because everybody's taste is different. That's not the case. But I am more liable to be like, somebody hates fun if they don't like the Lego Movie.
It makes sense. Briefly go over the cast. We've got Chris Pratt, Will Ferrell, Elizabeth Banks, Will Arnett, Nick Offerman, Alison Brie, Charlie Day, Liam Neeson, Morgan Freeman, and then in bit parts in there we've got like Anthony Daniels, Billy D. Williams, Channing Tatum, Jonah Hill, all various other funny comedian people. Cameo by Chris Miller. He voices the Where Are My Pants guy.
There was also a cameo of Will Forte was Abraham Lincoln.
Mm-hmm. Ever since Clone High, he's been Abraham Lincoln in anything that they've done.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, I never understood why, but
that
makes
Will Forte?
a lot more sense. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. Okay. But yeah, the cast is just stacked, and all of the Lego movies are, even like the Ninjago one, which is based on a property that's not as popular as the other 3 movies. They still had an amazing cast.
The only Lego original property.
Right.
Yeah. And like, I think it speaks to, I think the best way to describe or to explain why this one is so good is to kind of explain. You kind of have to explain the tropes of a typical Hollywood animated movie and go, so this one doesn't do that. And I think the cast is a great place to start. Pretty much ever since like the 90s era of like Aladdin and the Disney and those Disney movies, leading into the 2D age of DreamWorks, you got a lot of movies that were, this is a celebrity, just like Madagascar, I think is a perfect example. They're fine. I enjoy them. But they're Ben Stiller and Chris Rock and David Schwimmer and Jada Pinkett Smith aren't really acting. They're speaking. They're just doing they're putting effort in, but it's not like Sacha Baron Cohen's he is contorting his voice and like creating a character in those movies, whereas everybody else is just kind of speaking.
Yeah, they're kind of playing themselves over the character.
Like Aladdin, love it or hate it, Genie is Robin Williams. Robin Williams was not creating like this very sophisticated. He was being Robin Williams, and he was very good. But like that's what it was, and that's kind of where it started. Ants, a weird example. Like Woody Allen voices literally Woody Allen. Like it's a cliche for a lot of animated films made in like big budget Hollywood, and that's not to say that some don't break out of it. How to Train Your Dragon, perfect example. Those movies, the actors are really doing acting. Like, Craig Ferguson, Gerard Butler, what is his name? Jay Baruchel, doing some, like, actually acting.
Right.
And I think Lego definitely, if you approach it with that aspect of, like, this is based on Lego, this has this stacked of a cast, like, what is this going to be? Once you get into it, you realize there's a lot of effort happening on the cast side, on the voice acting side. Not only to communicate the story, but to deliver really good jokes.
Oh, yeah. There's if you watch some of the behind the scenes stuff, there's a video I remember of just that, like, the actors in the studio with Phil and Chris, like, recording lines, and at one point, like, Chris Pratt is like, or one of the directors is, like, miming throwing shit at Chris Pratt to get him to, like, actually scream and react in a somewhat realistic way. And I think that kind of energy translated throughout the entire movie in their vocal performances.
It's it's one of those, I don't know, it's just the cast is really excellent. You really they bring a lot to the characters, and not just in terms of acting, but just that aspect of, like, there's some points where you feel like you could, like, I'll go back to Madagascar. I don't mean to shit on Madagascar. Their movies are fine.
Bad.
I have the third one is, like, somewhere up here. I have it on 3D Blu-ray.
As you should. The only way to watch Madagascar 3, Europe's Most Wanted.
It's the only good one. But, like, Ben Stiller, if you swapped him out for, I don't know, if you swapped Ben Stiller out for...
Who's a good Ben Stiller equivalent? Let's think about this.
I mean, it's going to sound like a meme. I don't mean it to, but if you swapped Ben Stiller with Jerry Seinfeld, it wouldn't really change a lot of the character of Alex the Lion.
Right.
The delivery might be a little different, but, like, his character would not be changed. Whereas, a lot, like, Vitruvius, who's voiced by Morgan Freeman, a lot of that character comes from the reputation of Morgan Freeman being that, like, the voice of reason. I'm Morgan Freeman. I know what I'm talking about. Elizabeth Banks being that kind of, like, smart and wild child kind of character adds a lot to Wild Style as her character arc progresses, not just in the first movie, but the second.
Right.
And even as you get into some of the more bit characters, Alison Brie does a really good job as Unikitty, because she, from Years on Community, balances that, like, I'm very cute, but I will rip your throat out aspect very well, that is communicated in Unikitty, and so on and so forth. Will Arnett is does a perfect job as Batman, because he balances that, like, thick-headedness of, again, to reference an old TV show, Years on Arrested Development, playing a character who's very much like, I know what I'm doing, very clearly does not.
Right.
I've made a huge mistake.
And then, again, like, bringing that into the Lego Batman movie even more succeeds. And Emmett is an interesting case. Because I think if you look at where Chris Pratt was when this came out...
Yeah, it was, like, right around the time that Parks and Recreation was winding down, like, into this last couple seasons.
Yeah.
Did Guardians of the Galaxy... Guardians of the Galaxy 1 hadn't come out yet.
So Guardians was the same year, but that was later.
Oh, that's right.
Guardians was in August. Lego Movie was in February.
Right.
So I think it's actually, in a weird way, to compare it to another MCU alum, it reminds me of the year that Iron Man came out was the same year that Sherlock Holmes came out. These two movies with Robert Downey Jr. leading them, where he hadn't really been proven as, like, a reliable actor since, like, since before his... I think Chaplin was before his rehab days. But, like, coming out of all of that, being a risk on the set, like, Paramount didn't want to insure him on the set of Iron Man. Like, not to that same extent with Chris Pratt, but taking this actor who you're like, that guy? The one from Parks and Rec? Okay, sure, I guess. And, like, really cementing, both this and Guardians, really cementing the kinds of characters that he can play, not just comedically, but, like, play emotionally successfully. Because there's a surprising amount of emotional stuff that happens in this movie.
Yeah, it's insane.
Yeah. I don't want to get too much into, like, plot spoilers yet. I want to kind of leave that for the later half.
Sure.
But yeah. So
yeah, can I say one thing?
Sure.
I just, like, the main aspect of the casting that makes it just so great, just to kind of sum up what you've been saying, but I think it's very easy to tell that all of the actors are being very earnest with their performances and being as real as possible in a movie about fucking Legos. So, but that adds to it and makes it so much more, I guess, relatable in some ways, but fantastical in others, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of... I think the phrase, like, everybody had fun making this movie is kind of disingenuous, because there are plenty of movies that people had fun making doesn't mean they took them seriously. Like, I'm sure Kevin James had fun making Paul Blart Mall Cop. I don't know if that meant he took it seriously.
Right. But with this one, you can tell that they actively had fun and took their job very seriously at the same time. And that's why... one of the reasons why it's so good.
Yeah. In order to deliver a good story, you need the actors backing it up. You can't just have a good plot. I mean, you and I have seen plenty of high school shows. We've seen plenty of high school productions of really good plays that are good, that have won awards, and then you see some of the high school productions put it on, and...
Yep.
I've been in a few of those productions.
Get that.
But speaking of plot, I think that's a perfect kind of segue into talking about something I think we can touch on without getting too spoilery, which is the way that this subverts not just what you would expect from a typical animated film, but what you would expect from a typical Hollywood movie. And I think...
especially one that's based on such an established brand.
Right. And even then, like, even before we get into that, I want to talk about the animation.
Oh, yeah.
Because...
Probably my favorite aspect of the entire movie overall is probably the animation.
Like, it looks like Legos. It's got that stop-motion look of Legos. And you might look at that and go, like, well, yeah, of course. Like, why wouldn't it have that? It's a Lego movie. You and I probably grew up... I know for a fact you probably did... playing the Lego video games and and watching those like direct to DVD, like the Ninjago TV show where it was like, look, they're Lego. By that we mean that they are Lego figures in a semi-realistic background with like interacting with realistic things, and like they're the only things that are Lego. So to see this world where the ground is entirely made of Lego, they pour a cup or like drink something and the liquid is made of Legos, like really toying with the physicality of everything.
Yeah,
that's a really smart
part
way.
Of what makes everything in the world that they build so special is that, like, I remember seeing something, an interview, I think, either with the directors or with the director of animation on the film, that they explicitly wanted to make sure that every single... you could pause the movie and be able to say, okay, I can build what I see out of Lego.
Yeah. Because
every single shot is made out of Lego. There's not, I don't think, except for
I think the only
an obvious exception.
I think the only custom pieces are pieces for the characters. Like Lord Business's hair, I don't think you could get before the movie came out. Like Wild Style's hair, too. Like some of those aspects, which given that those are understandable, but like even down to the little details of like Vitruvius, Morgan Freeman's character, has a staff that is a chewed up lollipop stick.
Yeah. And
the reason he has that is because they were like, you can actually, if you put a lollipop stick into a Lego figure's hand, it actually does fit. So like we were like, that makes perfect sense. Let's do that. But not just in the fact that everything looks Lego. Like if you pause while a character's running, and like they have that blur of like motion blur. If you pause at the right moment, you will see it's not the character like stretched or like something like that, like you would see in a typical animated movie. It's like
another figure.
Well, not just that. Like it's Benny, who's a like little space guy. He's blue.
Yeah.
There's a scene where he's running. If you pause it, it's blue long Lego pieces, like to make the look of him moving really fast with the motion blur. Like it's really as close to all being made of Lego as they could possibly get. Even the water. There's a scene in an ocean, which in the later movies they didn't go as hard as they did. Like Lego Batman, the water is realistic, which honestly, perfectly fine. Like, that's...
Yeah.
No one's really gonna complain about that.
Right.
But, like, the opening scene of the movie where Lord Business kicks in a door, like, the puffs of smoke are Legos, like, evaporating out forward. And it just makes everything feel really authentic. In a weird comparison, like, the new Trolls movie that came out, where they have, like, all the worlds of music, like, the leaders of those worlds are voiced by, like, actual big figures in the, like, the world of funk, the king is voiced by George Clinton, who did Bow Wow, hugely, everybody knows, whether you know the name, you know that song, hugely popular funk song, so you go, oh, he's the leader, that makes sense, that adds a little bit of authenticity. So in kind of the same way, it adds to this sense of, like, I am watching just Legos. Like, it almost, in a way, like, Toy Story doesn't feel like a commercial for these toys, even though it kind of is, because you feel entirely enraptured in this world. And I think that's kind of why, despite the fact that it is literally an advertisement for all of these Lego sets, it doesn't feel like an advertisement because you're just enraptured in this whole world. They committed to that.
Yeah, I think they definitely did a good job in making sure that it doesn't seem like just a toy ad, because it goes so much further than that. And it actively, like, it's a story that has a moral, and, like, there's so many different ideas that they posit about what it means to be a kid and growing up, and the idea of the hero's journey. There's, like, so many different themes and morals that they've packed into this in order to ensure that it's something more than just a toy commercial, which I greatly appreciate.
So I think we've discussed all we can really discuss without, at the very least, getting into, like, light spoilers. So this is like a light spoiler warning. And I think a great place to start is kind of like we already mentioned, that idea of the hero's journey, wherein, the brief description of the hero's journey we already gave, and Emmett is this character who is aggressively average. It's a joke at the beginning of the movie that he's the only character with the basic two-dot smile Lego face in the entire movie. All of the main cast, everyone else has, like, eye color or, like, a beard, or, like, there's something to differentiate themselves.
Detail. Yeah.
But Emmett literally is the default Lego head. And there's a lot of humor, there's a lot of fun poked at his aggressive averageness. But there's, I think that a mark of great comedy, a mark of a great comedy writer is when you can take a joke and make the joke, and then without the audience even realizing it, that joke is turning from something funny to something kind of tragic, something kind of sad. I think another Phil Lord, Chris Miller property, The Last Man on Earth. I don't know if you've seen it, how familiar you are with that.
I've seen, like, a couple episodes.
But, like, the joke is, look at this guy, he's alone. There's a pandemic, an apocalypse happened, he's the last man on Earth. And the first episode is very funny because you're like, oh, look, he's crashing cars, he's bowling, he's throwing a bowling ball at, like, fish tanks, he's, like, doing all of these things that we would do.
Making out with the mannequin, the one scene that sticks in my head.
But by the end of the episode, the humor kind of subsides, nothing has changed with him, but it becomes that moment of, oh, he is alone. And perfect example of that, at the very beginning in the first 20 minutes of Lego Movie, Emmett is being interrogated. I'll have the clip pop up right now.
Boom! That guy's not a criminal mastermind.
See?
Yeah, he's kind of a average, normal kind of guy.
Thank you.
But he's not like normal like us. No, he's not that special.
Wait, I'm so confused. Who are we talking about? Wait, does he work with us?
Gail doesn't remember me?
Look at Randy here. He likes sausage. That's something. Gail is perky. That's something. Harry, well...
When you say Harry, I go... When you say the other guy, I go...
I know that guy, but I know like zippy zap about him.
We just talked earlier.
I mean, all he does is say yes to everything everybody else is doing.
You know, he's just sort of a little bit of a blank slate, I guess. That'll be $42, please.
We all have something that makes us something, and Emmett is... nothing.
There you go. I told you I was a nobody.
And it turns this up until this moment, this has just been the joke of the character. To, oh, you are not, there's nothing really special about you. And it...
Yeah. It hits.
Yeah, it hurts a little bit.
Yeah, because, like, I mean, Chris Pratt's performance makes the character so obviously lovable, and it's not to love, he's great. But, yeah, it takes a turn and gives the main character something to obviously strive for throughout the movie. He wants to become, you know, the chosen one, the special. And yeah, I think that's it's interesting. It works really well.
And I think it's, most other movies would have, by the end of the movie, him becoming this fascinating, all-powerful, like, he is the most powerful, he is the special.
Mm.
And this kind of does, but kind of doesn't.
Sort of. Well, basically, his final form isn't really something that's much more powerful than the other master builders that he's been interacting with the entire movie. Other than the fact that, I mean, spoiler alert, he can apparently travel through dimensions and...
Oh yeah, we're in full spoiler territory at this point, so like...
True.
But there's this aspect of, like... I don't know how to, like... There are elements in every kind of movie like this. Every, like, team-up movie where there's the moment where, hey, we're working together as a team, everyone is positing their very specific, like, aspects, their very specific skills so that we can all work together as a team. I mean, I can't really think of a good example, but it's like every heist movie where it's like, all right, you're the tech guy now, you do your tech thing, and you do your climbing thing, and you do your distraction thing, and everyone's working together. And Emmett posits the same thing during one of the final moments of the film, or not final, but one of the moments in the third act. Everyone is like, how do we get into this place? How do we do this? And Emmett's like, well,
how will we get inside? In a spaceship.
Spaceship! Great idea. A bat spaceship.
No, they're expecting us to show up in a bat spaceship or a pirate spaceship or a rainbow sparkle spaceship.
One of those sounds awesome to me.
My idea is to build a spaceship that's exactly like all the other Octane delivery spaceships.
So not the special spaceship that I'm building for all of you right now.
Sorry, Benny. Maybe next time.
And he's not changing. He's not discovering some power within him that is the key. He is still being Emmett.
Right.
But that's the key. And I don't know.
It's interesting because, like, now that I think about it, the movie kind of tends to... Two of the main themes in the movie are kind of contradictory, honestly, because Emmett is shown as, like, this very average person who's always, like, a big thing about him is that he's a construction worker who's always following the instructions, never deviating from them. And everybody else that he comes in contact with on his adventure are master builders, and they make all this crazy shit and use their imaginations and whatnot, when he is kind of just being low-key and following the instructions. And the movie, like, makes positive cases for both aspects, which makes sense because when you get a new Lego set, you either follow the instructions and build what's on the box, or just build whatever the fuck you want, whatever's in your imagination. And both are valid, and I think that's an interesting aspect of the themes of the movie, that both of these are contradictory, but they're fine either way. Just as long as you're having fun, that's what matters.
Yeah, I remember seeing this, like you. I saw this opening weekend. I was very excited for it. I was also in high school. I think it was a date. I think it was a date movie with someone. But like, I went in purposely not looking at any reviews, And I remember the movie ending, and I was like, that's probably a movie that everyone hated that I loved. And then I check, like, Metacritic and Rotten Tomatoes, and I see it's, like, got an 88 on Metacritic, and, like, Rotten Tomatoes is in, like, the high 90s. I was like, ooh,
right.
Hell yeah. But, like, it is so fascinating that it posits two completely different answers to its central core idea and doesn't specify.
Yeah, both are fine. Just as long as you're having fun and using your imagination and doing what makes you happy, that's all that matters. And that's a great like theme, especially for kids.
Yeah. I think it requires so much talent on the hands of the writers and the directors because it's so easy to make a movie, that's a loaded statement. It's from my perspective, it's easy to did we lose you? Oh no, there you are.
No,
we lost you for a split second.
Sorry.
From my perspective, you see a lot of movies come out that have two different points of view, and try to posit both, and try to make you, the audience, leave with, well, which do you think?
Right.
But you, an audience member, go, well, you clearly thought that one. Like, even if you posited both, it's very clearly you thought. Like, great example. I love Captain America: Civil War. It doesn't really show both. Like, it kind of does, but the movie definitely ends with, like, so we're siding with Cap, right? All the directors and writers were siding with Cap. Whereas
it's easy to tell.
Phil Lord and Chris Miller are literally like, we don't know. Which do you want to do? And I don't think people give them enough credit. Like, they write amazing comedy, but I don't think people give them enough credit for how good of writers they actually are.
Right. And, like, that's the case even for, like, the Jump Street movies. Like, they're laugh out loud, like, honestly really gross at certain points. Kind of like your typical, like, R-rated buddy cop comedy. But if memory serves, they actually did give it a lot of emotion, and there were a lot of emotional beats in that movie that were completely unexpected. But it worked, and they made it work.
Oh, yeah. Like, I mean, there is the typical joke of, like, oh, we got the jock doing the nerdy stuff and the nerd doing the, like, more popular kid stuff. But there is I think, legitimate, believable aspect of, like, no, we're growing. We're, like, we're not just being put in each other's shoes. We're forming some sort of respect for each other. And I think that happens in this, too. There is respect shown for both there's a really great... All right, this seems completely out of left field.
Go for it.
There's a documentary called Indie Game the Movie that I love. It's my favorite documentary of all time. It's about 3 different independent video games and the production of each of them. And one of the...
Wait, let me see if I remember them. Hold on. It was Minecraft, Super Meat Boy, and Braid, right?
Not Minecraft. Fez.
Oh, wait. Fez, that's right. Okay, I'm here.
But so... Super Meat Boy is one of the games, and they're talking to the creator of one of the games, and he's talking about his childhood and, like, growing up, like, drawing all of these weird creatures and things. And at one point he says, it's cool to be a creative kid, but you risk isolating yourself with all of your ideas.
Yeah.
And I think this kind of posits that same idea where, like, it's cool to imagine and try to create all of these different things, but you need that balance, because if you don't have that balance, then you risk cutting yourself off from the quote-unquote average perspective. And I think that's a really cool idea, and I think that's one of the reasons that they don't really posit a positive or a negative to either of these sides. They mention pros and cons, but there is no ending with, this is it.
Right. The only thing that they definitively say that is, like, negative is the idea of control or over control.
Yes.
And that's great, because like, that's true. When you try to control how somebody else perceives or just enjoys a specific thing, then they obviously lose their ability to create. I don't know if I'm phrasing this the right way, but
it's a movie about gatekeeping.
Yeah. Yes. Perfect. You said exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Great.
Getting really heavy into, like, ending spoilers, because it's really impossible to talk about this movie without talking about the big twist.
Right.
Which other Lego movies kind of copied in a similar way sense, but you're watching this movie and there's this very intense. It's again that balance of humor and intensity. Like all of the master builders have been captured, and like the place is going to explode. And as it's exploding, the timer is, instead of just counting 10, 9, 8, 10 Mississippi, 9 Mississippi.
9 Mississippi.
Like, again, that comedy and the seriousness fusing. Emmett sacrifices himself. He jumps out of the edge of a window. To do so, he unhooks the battery, he turns the bomb off, and he's falling, he lands in blackness, and he opens his eyes, and he's in...
Is this another vision? Where am I? Is that the office tower?
the real world.
Mm-hmm.
And
my jaw dropped in the theater.
It was a
Did not expect that.
It was a moment where I was just sitting there and I was like, you're doing this.
Yep.
Whoa.
Which is that's hilarious because like that's a level of meta humor that I think young me would have 100% written into a Lego animation that I was making. That's like incredibly accurate to how kids think, and it worked.
Like if you go onto YouTube and I don't know if you can like only look for like this date and this date between these two dates on YouTube, but if you search like between 2011 and 2014 and just search Lego animation, 99% of the ones you're gonna find are like Foot invades Lego Town, or like whoa, what's the hand that's like that's a very real thing that like was very common to see among those animations. But it's I think the reason it works is because in a weird way, if you look at a lot of these like bring the animated thing into live action cliches, like not just like Sonic's in our world, but like Rocky and Bullwinkle bringing the cartoon, the fictional thing into our world, where a lot of them run into issues is, well, we're just doing this just because that's what you do, just because that's
it's a gimmick.
Whereas this happens to continue to further the plot,
right? And that's something I'd never seen, and I love that.
And not just that being the twist, but then they double down with, hey, President Business, the villain that you've seen the whole time.
The man upstairs.
What happened?
He's not just a Lego minifigure, he is the dad of this kid who is positing himself as Emmett and like dealing with his internal feelings through the toys and the adventure he's making them go on, and it becomes such an incredible, like, I don't know.
It's to be fair, I will say this. It's definitely not like a criticism, but the idea that the problem doesn't really exist in the real world, that a little kid can't play with his dad's Legos, because that's not really something that happens. But, like, I don't know. I think we can all relate to being, like, told that we can't do something growing up that seems unfair or unrealistic or whatever. And I don't know, just the way that they play with the realistic emotions of this kid through the entire movie, and then kind of bringing it all together at the end. I don't know. It's just really well done.
Yeah, because I think like we can all relate to just that aspect of like, I want to do that. Well, no. Well, why? Because I said so. Like going in your, like being upset at your parents and going in your room and like digging your action figures and like, man, this guy's angry at this guy. They're gonna fight because he said he can't do something, and like positing your own emotions on these inanimate objects.
Yeah, it's a relatable, like, not that specific situation, obviously, but that whole that we've all been through that
dude,
at one
speak
point.
for yourself. We had a Lego train set, like, with a town built around it when I was a kid. My dad was like, you can add to it, but you will not take anything off of the table.
Then yeah, fuck me. My parents never played Legos with me, so I was just basing that on my own experience. I'm sorry. I gotta forgive my ignorance.
It's all good, but to the last thing that I really want to mention, that like puts the cherry on top of all of this, is the last aspect of the hero's journey plot that it not only subverts, but that puts a bow on the entire movie, is there's that idea that I'm trying to think of the way to explain it. Emmett has the speech at the end of the movie where he says,
"You are the most talented, most interesting, and most extraordinary person in the universe. And you are capable of amazing things because you are the special. And so am I. And so is everyone. The prophecy is made up, but it's also true. It's about all of us. Right now, it's about you. And you still can change everything."
And he's saying we all have this innate ability to create, to imagine, to think, and we can all create these sort of things. But where I think it goes a little bit further is, while it's not outright said, there is that implication that, and if you don't want to, that's fine. It's that same thing that you were talking about where they posit that idea, if you want to follow the instructions, that's fine. If you want to use your imagination and create whatever, like, that's fine.
Right.
The ending speech gives that example of we're all special. And if you don't want to be, that's okay.
Yeah.
And it's just...
It's really well done. Now that I think about it, the words that are coming to my mind when I am going to describe the Lego movie to someone who hasn't seen it is going to be an anarchist fantasy children's movie.
It really is.
Yeah, because like one of the main points is just that they live in this totalitarian society where all the rules have to be followed at all times, and breaking the rules is obviously the worst thing that can ever happen. And by the end of the movie, like the main villain realizes, oh shit, control is not a good thing. People need to be able to do whatever they want, and if they don't want to participate, that's cool too.
It's like we haven't even talked about like everything. We haven't talked about the Craggle or like
right.
all of the like. There's still so much we have not touched on.
Nothing. I don't think we'd be able to talk about every important aspect of the movie in an hour. You just got to watch it.
Oh yeah, and it's one of those where I don't want to tell you all the cool things about this movie because it's so fun to watch. And I mean that's a testament to Phil Lord and to Chris Miller and to the cast and the crew. What just really feels like a movie that they enjoyed making.
Yes.
And yeah, I don't know. It's really fucking Phil Lord and Chris Miller are like, we're gonna make the Lego Movie, one of the best animated movies of the past like 2 decades. And everyone's like, whoa, what are you gonna do next? And they're like, we got this thing we're gonna work on. It's gonna come out in a few years. It's called Spider-Verse. Like we're gonna once again
very low-key
reinvent what an animated movie can be 2 times within the same decade.
Yeah, that's
just casually.
They do not get enough credit for that, though, honestly, because I think for both of those movies, they were very distinct markers in the timeline of animation in the last couple of years, where you can say, okay, something changed here with the Lego Movie, and something definitely changed here with Spider-Verse. From there on out, things were a little bit different.
Oh, yeah.
And for the better, because, I mean, for both movies, I think they invented techniques of animation that weren't used before.
Like Animal Logic, who animated the Lego Movie, they've done a bunch of visual effects stuff, but prior to that was like Happy Feet.
Right.
Which makes sense because incredibly realistic looking penguins and animation and stuff like that, and then Lego Movies, like you can see the scuffs and the like cuts and things like that. on the characters, but yeah, now I gotta I've got it in 3D, so like I'm gonna rewatch. I got Lego Batman in 3D too, so like I might rewatch that later tonight just because you got me excited again about it. But yeah, Lego Movie, man, like
incredible,
really good time. Soundtrack kicks ass too. Like
yes, it does.
Yeah. We gotta stop because we're just gonna keep going on and on. Right. But on that note, thank you for joining me, Aaron. Thank you for coming to talk about such a fun movie. It's nice too because I talked to Cameron about the Florida Project, which he and I agreed on was really, really good. Then I talked to Jordan about The Big Green, which we differed in our opinions on. And then I talked about A Knight's Tale with Clint, where we were both kind of like, it's good, it's fun. It's nice to come back to a movie where I'm like, no, perfect,
yeah,
like guaranteed.
I'm glad we can agree on that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So this has been another episode of Major Motion Pictures. Thank you, Aaron, for joining me.
Thanks for having me, buddy.
Is there anything you want to plug before you leave? Twitter, YouTube, anything like that?
Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Aaron C. Burstein. That's
I'll put it in the description and I'll throw it up on the screen.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's about all I got.
All right. Yeah. Thank you everybody for watching. We'll be back with something later. I don't know who's gonna be next. There's one person who wants to do a series of movies, so I need to find time to watch 4 movies. God. They're all similar-ish, so it's not like I'm watching like 4 Marvel movies. They're all pretty much the same in execution and all, but it's just finding the time to watch 4 movies.
Yeah.
But so yeah, I will see you guys in the next one. I don't know why I was looking at my microphone. I don't know. All right. I'll see you guys.
Bye.
Bye.